probably have seen this definition. It's from 1988 from the World Health Organization. The important piece in here is that health is not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So there are positive outcomes that come along with the idea of health, which includes social well-being. Now, if you are not familiar with this, here I have the World Health Organization. This is of the Declaration of Health and Survival of Indigenous People. And to me, the very important elements of this definition is the intergenerational continuum and the idea of health as a whole. Basically, health as at the community level. Now, because we are in this sphere, in this realm of society, academia, where our ideas matter in order to achieve different things, there is this idea of boundary objects. One great example of a boundary object is wildlife corridors, because despite of conservationists and indigenous herders might have different agendas and objectives, they can use that concept to work together. So that is the key. Now, I'm seeing this boundary object, healthy territories. It is more relevant in Latin America than what I have seen in other places. It first started on the public health realm, in the sense of how we can deliver more comprehensive healthcare. But as a boundary object is also moving into nutrition, food sovereignty, and agroecology. Here are a few kind of like areas where the concept has been used. It has been even used at the municipal level, like having like larger administrative areas as healthy territories, so both ecosystems and people. Now, there are good chances that you are familiar with this concept of the blue zones. It has become increasingly popular. This author here, Dan Butner, has been like a big promoter of it. And there's even a show in Netflix. So there is these interdisciplinary studies that have looked at certain populations. Here you have like the 5-day blue zones. This is more kind of an X-ray at that moment. For example, we are seeing that there are like other phenomena happening in these areas. Like Okinawa is a good example where we are seeing way more chronic disease than what we were seeing in the last 10 years. But it's a very strong concept for the conversation about health. And this is very recent, where Dan Butner is saying like health requires an environment in order to be shaped, in order to take place. Now, I want to add in your mental maps, besides these iconic blue zones, something that is not even near the ocean, but it is a community-like blue zone. And it's a very small community, so we scale down up to the Riobamba city, and this is important to have a sense of the Riobamba Canton, this yellow area, because one of the parishes, kind of a small administrative area, is the Flores parish. Caliata is one small indigenous community in the Flores parish. And this is a picture, isn't it stunning? This is a pre-Inca system of terraces. So presumably they have been producing food on a healthy, sustainable way for at least 1,000 years. And we have done soil analysis, biodiversity assessments, and it's admirable the integrity of these agroecological system. Here, a little bit of our previous research, so I can round the concept of territorial health or healthy agroecosystems. This is a comparison between five other communities that had agroecological interventions. Caliata, we could say that it has not been intervened. So this is their traditional system, and that is how it compares in terms of ecological richness and evenness. It is like wild. Of course, it is a relative contrast. It's not a perfect comparison for a variety of reasons we describe in this article. And it is a very smart system overall. So it is not surprising to see this. Not many communities come with an architecture of the level of these terraces. Now, moving more into the human health piece, bottom line of this story is very low chronic disease. And when we are seeing chronic disease in this community, are people over 60 years old, which is kind of like normal effect of aging. So overall, it's a pretty healthy community. This one, I want you to pay particular attention because this is the NOVA model, and I'm going to speak about the NOVA model afterwards. This was led by a group of Brazilian researchers with Carlos Monteiro, and they basically are saying it's not about diverse diets only. It is that whether or not those diets are minimally or non-processed or super processed foods. And that is like the big divide. When we are looking at this community, Caliata, most of what they consume is in the group number one, minimally processed. We also analyze the diversity of the diets, like very rich, diverse diets. So using an index for diverse diets, it's pretty high, like 7 in a 10. And we are also seeing whether or not they eat what they are producing, which it's also true. They also exchange, like ancestrally communities, and because the Andes has this phenomenon of verticality, so a lot of exchange between different climatic floors. They also have a lot of fruits that come from coastal and tropic in the Amazonian areas. And when we are seeing this group 4, the super processed foods, basically soluble coffee, instant coffee is what drives the number up. So we are realizing these things and seeing this one came from a participatory exercise. So it was graphically translated from what the community is also realizing themselves, because a lot of the work that we are doing is centered in the community. That is like a main driver of the type of work that we are doing. And this integrates a little bit of the ecological and the Andean cosmovision. Like, yes, we're talking about communities that are functional, that kind of like creates a form of stability, but we are including humans in the mix. And that is very important, like avoiding that obsession of separating. And that's why the boundary object of healthy territories is so important. Because, for example, thinking in a planetary health narrative, it changes the scale from the population level, but towards like geographical pieces where people and non-human nature are integrated, like how that health looks like. And that is the point. That is what we are trying to understand with our project. So stage 1 of the symphony, and I guess that is what you came to see today, but we needed a full rounded concept to begin with. And that is like one of the key premises of our work. We know that in the way we interpret health, and we are trying to understand this integrated, holistic, in the continuum piece of health, we're just here. And we are trying to go a little bit deeper with our Symphony project. We know that that means also integrating a specialization. And I'm very lucky of having this amazing team working in this. And I have people in here in this room that are part of the Symphony and also connected online. So I feel like so fortunate that we can have an amazing level of specialization and at the same time allow ourselves to use this as a playground to explore like the mechanism, how these factors interact in time. So our project, like what we did recently in Ecuador, we knew that there is a gap in the literature, in the empirical studies. One of the key things is to unveil the universal and the cultural differences. It is important to develop a methodological package and tools that are culturally sensitive. And we need to really work hard, both people promoting planetary health, One Health, and other similar frameworks on holistic models for health, like how we are operationalizing that. In terms of the methods, we are using a lot of different approaches to measure this phenomenon. And we are conducting this in three groups. So one is the traditional agroecological, Caliata, you saw it, agro-industrial system, and the people from this condition that have migrated to the city. And what we are expecting is basically what I already described. So this map, because I think that the visual element is very important. So here we have the city of Riobamba. This is Riobamba Canton. I know it can be confusing because both things, it's called Riobamba. And here we have Flores, and here we have Punin, and I think this one is San Luis. So these two actually have heavy agro-industrial food production, whereas Flores, it's more or less what we would consider like family agriculture, pretty like traditional agroecology. And as you can see, it's very close. So in that model that I show of the NOVA, it's also telling the story that these folks here could have chosen to eat differently. They could have purchased sugary drinks rather than oranges. Still, what we are seeing is that what they place in the diet are oranges. So there is also an agency and intention. And this is the amazing Symphony team. I'm basically here as a person that is kind of like embodying the whole team. I'm very surprised of how we managed to put this together. And that's something that I really want to stress today. I think that more than explaining what is our rationale is also kind of like acknowledging this thing that I'm referring later on as kind of like solidarity in research, like this commitment. And a project like this, I believe, would only be possible through that commitment, through that like willingness of stepping forward. And as you can see, there are folks from Ecuador and the US, and the communities also play such a critical role. Like the heart of the project probably is in this area. So our two community leaders that are part of the research team, Mabel, the field director, and we have community leaders working in the project in each parish. And so here, a little bit of pictures. I had to place these so you know that we are not hiring children. Yeah, Andrew, Amaya, copy of this work, Bailey, these are UVM people, Mabel and Edith. These are shots from our previous documentary, and these are upcoming documentary. Here we have folks from University of Cuenca, Pepa, wonderful, doing a lot of the physical activity component with accelerometers, our biologists doing the agrodiversity assessments. Greg, if you don't know Greg Bradman, is a big name in nature and health and a good friend. Paul, he's the director, one of the directors of the Microbiology Institute in the University of San Francisco de Quito. Andres Gomez, also from University of Minnesota, amazing microbiologist, top expert in the microbiome. Angelica, physical activity, University of Cuenca. Connor Lashos, amazing PhD student with Greg. Denise, that is in the Paul's lab in University of San Francisco de Quito. Samuel, also with the team of University of Cuenca. So I asked folks also to share a picture so you can see the faces, which again, to me is so important in what I'm discussing. How we come into these ideas, because we have empirical premises to do this work. The resilience, we have discussed a little bit, positive deviance. Caliata is the perfect example of a positive deviance. So healthy territory, but if you look at many of the neighboring communities, that's not the case, being material poverty equal. So that is a fundamental aspect. A lot of the work, the current work that Greg is doing is on the olfactory piece, coherence model, which is something that Amaya is leading, about heart rate variability. And this is a great reference also for resilience from the psychological perspective. Indigenous depression and nature has been a lot of my own work for many years. And in the validated tools that we use for this work, actually, these pieces come together because what we are seeing is that as the expression of depression in communalist communities, it's very attached to place. And place is also a protective factor. Espina is a wonderful longitudinal study conducted by researchers from University of California, I think San Diego, Jose Ricardo Suarez. They have been analyzing systematically the effects of pesticides exposure. So they have like really informative work, and I also reached out to Jose Ricardo also when we were selecting our variables and the method and the things that we wanted to measure. And the NOVA, increasingly the NOVA is, there's a lot like important new studies that link in the depression and the chronic disease. We knew of the chronic disease, but now the depression piece makes sense. And it also makes sense with the current literature about the gut microbiome, because our organism, our ecosystem loves healthy, diverse diets. It makes our gut happy. But when we are consuming a lot of the super processed foods, our gut is sad. Yeah. So some of the works and the research informing these, there's a lot more, but I wanted to bring to your attention how we arrive into this proof of concept. This is a specific work from Andres Gomez lab, and it's very important and informative for the overall concept of the symphony. Here you are seeing the gut of gatherers and hunters and gatherers, agriculture, back to and how the gut looks in an average US American Western diet. So one of the things that is important to note is the diversity piece and the interaction piece, the mutualism. The positive deviance, as I already said, people in Caliata, we see a lot of long-lived people, over 100 years in a very small community. So having several people over 100 years old still working, it is telling. This is from the work of Bailey. And if you already have seen it because you went to a grand exchange a couple of years ago, you probably have seen it. And the bottom line here is like when you have the monocrops, you have these type of bacterial communities. But when you have like the three sisters, a synergistic model, those communities changes. And this is a good base for both soil health and resilience. So it's, again, great hypothesis because our ideas overlap very nicely. And this is the intercropping system in Caliata. So again, it's a well-rounded concept for a natural experiment. This is the work that I mentioned that Greg and Connor are doing. And I'm not going to stop in here. They just published this amazing piece in Science Advances last year, bringing together an interdisciplinary team to discuss the olfactory function and how it is important for the nature and health relationship. And this is an experiment that Connor and Greg conducted last summer. And what they are seeing in a 8-week intervention is that those that were exposed to forest environments, their nasal microbiome like increases important. And these are preliminary, not to share or distribute. So until this research comes into like the physical aspects. And this is, as I said, the work that Amaya is leading on the heart coherence. And we haven't seen the full data. There's a lot of things that we are trying to overcome. We need to move administrative things to release our data. But here's a small example. This is a person that shows up to the experiment. We do the baseline, then we do the nature exposure, and the normalized coherence change dramatically. But it's not necessarily the case. So it's not, but that's something that we need to understand, analyze as a whole. It's very interesting because this was kind of like an overall pattern. And when it was not, there were reasons that participants would express during the interviews we conducted, along with these 54 in-depth interviews. And this is like the menu of variables, and it goes on for another 12 pages. And it was a nightmare at the IRB level as well, 2 IRBs, one here and one in Ecuador. I'm really happy that we did, that we went through the whole thing. And these are photos from the field. Here's, you can see preparing the kits. We work a lot with, and in the support piece, I added the Karanki family, so important. They host us for 2 days in the community, so everybody could have the experience of being in Caliata. So that was also the more experiential piece of this type of work. This is the Cuenca team with the accelerometers. So participants had to wear these. This is the gold standard for 1 week, at least 8 hours in continue, having 3 full measurements. So we could tell like what are the overall physical activity. This on the biodiversity assessment. I love frogs, so here you have a couple of frogs. This was our lunch before we left Caliata. And here is Greg and Connor using this small thing that is pretty expensive. It is a Coriolis. It measures the air microbiome. And this picture, it's day one of when we got together, is very telling. This is a paint by an indigenous artist, Osvaldo Guayasamín. Guayasamín was expressing emotions in each of this. And why I place it in here, like also to keep stressing on this holistic aspect of health. And for example, the emotions. We try to approach it on many ways because we know that emotions play such an important role. in our life, in our health, in our community health. So this is the Symphony Project. At this stage, we know that we have a convenience sample that is quite small, 54 participants. We stratified it the best as we could by age, by sex. The 3 conditions, as you know. I said this is participatory work, and we ask so much from each participant. We ask a lot, including blood draws, urine sample, fecal samples, nasal swabs, the accelerometers, the cardiac coherence. So we ask a lot. 0 attrition. Not a single person left the study. And that is not normal. Solidarity in research. The people I mentioned show up with something. So for us, it was a relatively small operation in terms of our budget, in terms of how much we invested. But if we put together like all the lab kits that each person contributed, the reagents, their knowledge, it becomes a very large project. And at a given point, Connor said, like, stop saying this is a small project. I don't feel this is a small project. This is a large project. So yeah. And a large team in the field working together, sharing the experience, what type of explanations we are looking, both specialized and more holistic. Transmedia, we are producing a documentary covering the whole project. It's important to say because I started talking about the boundary objects and the need for dialogue. The dialogue also has to go beyond the borders of academia. And that's very important, the work that we are doing. We place a lot of effort into that. Looking ahead, I wish I could have shown up with some initial findings for this work. I really tried to do it, but there's so many fronts I have to deal to deliver the data. So that's happening, and maybe that's a great excuse for the Grand Slam. And let me see, why is this blank? Yeah, a few photos from the making of the documentary. And these are the testimonials I asked people from the team to share. So their voices are also reflected here today, because I cannot stress enough how important are these solidarity in the process of research. And in the looking ahead, we are hoping to produce a report with the initial findings as soon as possible. And from there, we have different streams of work. We have, as you saw, 3 PhD students. We want to protect their work. We want them that they can produce academic outcomes out of this effort. And then we are seeing what other things we can produce on the both specialized and holistic realms. So amazing, and thanks for allowing me the opportunity to share, and also to the team here and online. Again, so grateful. And this wouldn't have been able if not because we have fun and institutional support that allows us to do this. So Mind and Life, for example, is supporting what AMAI is conducting and what AMAI will keep conducting on the cardiac coherence realm, and REI is supporting overall the Symphony and other things that we're doing in these 2 amazing institutions that I feel so lucky to be a part of. And I wanted to plug in a little bit of what we are doing, the Agroecological and Planetary Health. This is one of our projects. We will do archaeological terraces in October. So we will really being able to find out how old, how ancient the terraces are, and the actual response of the terrace from different stressors, and two special issues that for your consideration. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Now I'm